worked at it, and you studied Victoria's Secret, and you read all these books. You know, tell me a little bit about the innovation process and how you think about that. And is it accidental? Is it just come to you, or is it all that hard work, or is it both?
I think it's probably both, and I think that it probably comes from a curious mind, and I think innovation very often starts with curiosity and just being very observant. And I think that my experience of innovation, I think a lot of the innovation is accidental. I think, you know, certainly with regard to Knickerbox, now I look back at it, it was an unusual way to sell lingerie. You know, we had shops on the stations, we had shops in the airports, we definitely broke some ground. And that bit, I think if you actually thought too much about it, you probably wouldn't have done it. So there was an element of that just can do, and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to go out there, and it sort of accidentally came together. I think now one looks at innovation slightly differently, and I think that over the last few years, of course, it's been a word that gets bandied around quite a lot. And it's a difficult one because I think everybody has a different view of what innovation means. And I think I've always worried that it's a little bit of a buzzword, and if we went round the room and we said to everybody, what is your definition of innovation, we'd probably all come up with something different. And it's a question of how many people can you put together that can really make a difference, because if you put a bunch of financial people in a room and say, what's innovation, they'll go, well, it's going to be worth 30 million and we're going to do it by next April, and we're going to, and I've heard those conversations, and so I think it's kind of an interesting debate to have.
Great, thank you. Mike, you showed us a whole bunch of technology that is just really amazing. Kumar wrote it on his little piece of paper, and next to me he goes, that's why I'm quitting this business. Does innovation, from your perspective, do you think it's best for innovation for people inside the industry, or for people outside the industry to bring innovation into the industry? Is it easier or harder one way or the other?
It goes, as with most things, I feel strongly both ways, because you can't predict when it's going to happen. And you hear so much about lock these people up in a room and challenge them with innovating. To me, the biggest innovations come from just having your mind open and being aware of what's going on and being able to leverage what other people do. And you might add something that gets the credit as the innovation when really it was this other person that kind of seeded it. So
is it kind of additive innovation, kind of like additive manufacturing?
Say that again?
It's additive innovation, kind of like additive manufacturing?
Yeah, I mean, there are times where people just start from scratch and they create something that nobody's ever thought of, but most innovations to leverage something that already exists, or you take something that's going on in one industry and you integrate it with something that's going on in another industry that fills a need in your industry. And I'll give you just one quick example and we'll quit. We talked about this colorants on this shirt. We are now trying to develop a technology that would allow the waterless coloring of solids, of natural fibers. You can do it on synthetics, but you cannot do it on cottons and other natural fibers. Well, here's some chemistry, but it's not in the right format, but we know it's proven. And there's another industry that puts like metal films, like the aluminum on the inside of potato chip bag. It's done from big rolls at very high speeds. That has an application technology that could be applied if we could get the chemistry created. So people hear that and they go, well, that makes perfect sense. Well, the innovation is going to be knowing about the two different industries and then being able to integrate them together.
And that aluminum foil example gives me a great example. Columbia Sportswear just released a new line of jackets where they print little micro dots of aluminum foil on the inside of the jacket so that it's not solid foil, so it doesn't hold your sweat, but it reflects 60% of your body heat. And they're incredibly warm. So it's using a technology that was from outside the industry and bringing it into the industry. So Nathan, You're the chief growth officer of MAS. Growth is hard. Can you talk about, how MAS thinks about innovation and some of the things that you're working on and how what is kind of the MAS ethos around innovation?
I think both what Mike and Janie said was absolutely true. Having the culture as well as technology is very important. MAS, for example, from the history of MAS, 26 years old, started innovating from then in different forms. At that time, joint ventures was not something that people did. And that itself was a new model of bringing business into the country. And as we went on, we looked at talent, and we were probably the first company that started sending talent out and developing that talent overall. So it's taken a journey. You can't bring innovation into an organization overnight. And then we started looking at how do we bring product development and design, and that itself was innovative at that time. We started bringing people from all over the world into Sri Lanka to train our people up. And that was another stage of innovation for us. And then when you look at where we wanted to understand consumers, we looked at design. And having offices in New York, UK, and Hong Kong helps us in understanding what the consumer really needs. So that's the last stage. So how do we go around looking at innovation now is basically understanding the consumer. And what Janie and Mike were talking about at the end of the day is how do we get things down to the consumer. So understanding how consumer behavior is going to be very important. When you look at Generation X, which is a generation after me, Generation X is not really born on being loyal to any one brand. It wants to be trialing things out. Generation Z has not even come into the market yet. So what do they really look at? So when you look at the consumer today, you look at consumers who are not brand loyal. You look at consumers who are looking at social media and other forms of media to really look at what trends are. They want to be the same, whether you're in Japan or in the US. The information is traveling a lot faster. So how do you really bring things like technology and the brand stories together to really drive innovation? And that's the ecosystem we're driving in our organization.
Fantastic, fantastic. Ashraf,
Yes.
you guys are moving from manufacturing to retail. How did you begin that journey? What was, how did that's an innovation, in itself. How did you begin that journey and talk about the innovation in that?
Yeah, frankly, very frankly speaking, frustrations. That's the truth. Because when we work as a manufacturer, there are so many challenges. So we thought, since we know all the technology, we have an idea, why don't we start our own retail? It was not easy. We failed, once we failed earlier. Then we thought, okay, now we need to correct it again. And we got a story, like you say, we built a story around high street sensuality. And we are still good in ladies' wear. So we thought, okay, let's make it up. Let's do it. We opened one store. It was very successful. Then we got the encouragement to open more stores. So now in India, we have 10 stores in India. And it's growing very fast too. So the idea is that once you have everything a ladies wear, from dresses to clothing to lingerie, ladies who come there, they like it, and we bring in about 80 styles every season. So that is innovation that we are creating now. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, well, don't give the mic away yet. So you started out of frustration because
Yes.
the retailers you were dealing with were really annoying, right?
It is. It is.
So-
it's
so-
challenging. It's
So-
challenging.
Challenging. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the right word. So we won't say annoying, but challenging. But now that you're a retailer yourself,
Yes.
are you a little more sympathetic
Yes, I am.
to how?
Let's tell you.
So
That's true.
does your own retail frustrate your own manufacturing?
No, it's very easy. Once you're own retailer and you're a manufacturer, you understand better. But you also manufacture for yourself. So you can decide and you can make decisions very fast. And you can go forward fast. Where in case of a manufacturing, as I said, contractor, it is difficult. Sometimes it's very difficult.
But do you think that opening your own stores
Yeah.
actually teaches you things that makes you better for
Yes.
your customer?
Sure.
This has got to be helping your customer as well, right?
Yeah, definitely, yes. It started with frustration, but we learned a lot now. And we know how to appreciate retailers as well. So it is helping us both ways. It is helping us in manufacturing as well as helping us in retailing. So we know our destination. We want to go somewhere. At least we have a destination now. And we also need to manufacture at the same time to grow that business as well.
So part of innovation is actually being in the shoes of the people that, you have to innovate for, right?
You're right, yes, exactly.
So good,
That's
good.
great.
So your customers will be happier now. This is good.
Yeah, they're happy.
Gihan, Orient Design has been a design house, very unique. Why talk about what is unique in design and innovation and how you think about innovation from a design perspective?
To start off with, when you have different customers, each one has different needs. And innovation there comes in at different times for different purposes. I could give a good example. We had a top brand customer who wanted garment dye, but he didn't have the lead time. He could afford the price, but he didn't have the lead time. So our challenge there was to develop a look which looked garment dyed, but without actually garment dyeing it. And by working with the washing plant and fabric suppliers, we managed to achieve that and reduce the lead time by about 3 weeks. So that was the customer's requirement, which had to bring out some innovation which would achieve the end result, and we even save some money on that. So being an independent design house, unless we produce results, because we are not subsidized by anybody, unless we produce results, we do not survive, because our revenue is totally from the money we earn from designing product. So in other words, we have to create for profit, otherwise we won't survive. If you are a part of a factory, you will be subsidized by the factory, but you wouldn't know whether you're really doing a good job, because whether you get results or not, you still get subsidized. So you have to continuously innovate and produce results to be in business. So we've grown from 2-3 designers to now 15 due to the fact that we've been getting results. It's been a challenge, but we have to keep on coming up with all the technology that's changing. So we moved from that, using laser designs and things like that, to keep on innovating, to be able to give your customer, because since we are giving them a service, we need to innovate for different demands.
Fantastic. I often say in our own business, it isn't about doing what the customer asks, it's about providing what the customer needs. And what you're talking about there is they wanted this garment dyed product, but you found a way around it to give them the same look and feel by using different technology, and in the process, save time and money in the supply chain, and now you have a really happy customer.
Yes, because the challenge used to be, even for them, when you go into product design, was to create, like some customers create a tech pack and send it to you, and that takes time. So they've started moving on to where they only send you a concept. It may be a cutting or a picture of a celebrity, and said, okay, we want to create this into a product, where you have a design team that is clued on enough to know that they can create a product based on that particular customer's DNA, and which they could adopt into production. So by doing that, we cut down almost a month's lead time.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Because as you know, in this business, you need to give the maximum time for the production, because all the problems that are faced in production. So till you get your fit approved, if you are spending time getting the style tweaked and the fit approved, you eat into your production lead time, which ends up in a really big disaster, because you end up air freighting or losing money. So the customer also does not need that, and they need the maximum selling time. So by cutting down that, by having a team which can achieve what somebody is requiring thousands of miles away, by being fully clued on with your customer's DNA and their designers, working hand in hand with them, to end up with a product with a very, very short lead time.
But that also requires a customer that's willing to be outside the box, if you will, because you're not doing what they asked you to do.
That comes with the confidence they get by working with you for some time. They constantly send their people, and we send our teams across who go and work with them, see their competitors, go for their shows, everything.
that seems to be a theme that I've seen a lot here in Sri Lanka, is the exchange of people. In Portland, Oregon, they call, between Columbia Sportswear and Nike, they call that prisoner exchange. They actually have people that go back and forth. They're actually 2 miles apart, and people go back and forth. But I've seen it at MAS. I've seen it at Victoria's Secret. You know, you go to the Cinnamon Grand in the bar at night, and it's full of Victoria's Secret designers. They're over here working. So it's pretty interesting how the people part of innovation, the way you exchange people. You wouldn't know? Oh, no, I'm sure. So we have a little bit of time left. I'm getting the signal here. Let me just ask everybody on the panel, and we'll start with you, one question. Just what is the single coolest, neatest technology or thing that you think is going to affect our business most over the next 5 to 10 years?
The internet.
Just the internet in general.
Yeah, because today, as far as design is concerned, just at a click, you could see what all your competitors are doing all over the world, and that's what makes it. Earlier, it was not possible for designers to sit in a tropical country and design a winter product without even experiencing a real bad winter. But today, by seeing what others are manufacturing in detail, it makes...
So does that mean designers aren't going to go to Paris for Fashion Week anymore? They can just go on the internet and look at it?
Well, a lot of it is done without going, and in most cases, you might not even know whether that person was there or not.
Great. Ashraf.
Yes. Speed to market. We need to do something about speed to market. So we are ourselves getting into a lot of new technology as well.
What technology was that?
Speed to market is the thing that we need to prove now. So we are going to SAP, we are going into Microsoft navigation, we are going into measurement fits, smart fits, so that we can grow with the technology. Technology is going to be a challenge in future. So we have to be with the technology. That's what we think, and we are developing that.
So all the technology that kind of helps with speed to market.
Yeah, I need to talk to Mike as well.
Yeah,
So,
he'd be happy to talk to you.
Mike, I thought my shirt is Jan died, but it looks like a sprinter, right? So I need to talk to you. So we're going to do that too.
Actually, we could look on the inside. The
Yeah,
fact that
we should see
your
it.
sleeves are rolled up.
Yeah.
They're not white on the
Right.
inside. So,
Great. Nathan.
I'm going to answer this question in two forms. I think there's a process piece of it, and then there's a product part of it. I think Mike is absolutely right. Things like 3D printing is going to take over, and the consumer is actually going to want more customized products. So when you look at consumer wanting customized product, you look at 3D printing as a potential opportunity. And what will deliver both of those is going to be open innovation, and that's going to be the process that we're going down. A lot of companies are looking at various forms of innovation, and actually it's invention they're looking at, but we're looking at it as an open innovation platform.
Great. Janie?
I'm not sure which bit of technology would be the most beneficial, but for me, it's communication with the customer. And in any way that we can get that message across, because I always feel, even with innovation, the worry is that, I've worked with Sri Lanka for a long time, they are highly innovative. The difficulty can come when you actually can't communicate that sufficiently to your customer, and they cannot see the benefits of it. So I think that there is a huge move as to how we really go about that. I was talking to Jonas earlier about sustainability, and I said sustainability almost needs to be built into a brand, because a brand communicates, and I think that we desperately need to be able to communicate with the customer in a way that they truly understand what innovation is bringing them. They can do it through Apple, they can do it through a smartphone, but when it comes to fantastic wires, great new technology on bras, great new technologies in the apparel industry, I don't think we communicate with the customer well enough.
And by not communicating with the customer well enough, we don't get the value for
Absolutely
the innovation that we're bringing. And it gets to that paradox that we talked about earlier today, which is the whole idea that we're doing all this great innovation, and all it's doing is driving down cost.
Absolutely.
And it isn't benefiting anybody.
Yeah.
It makes us consume more. That's great. Mike, you showed us a lot. Can you pick one or two?
well, we've already picked one that the one that's out there around 3D printing, because we've been following this whole stereolithography was, for a few years, and 3D printing is not that new, but it's now moving from rapid prototyping into production phase. This table sitting in front of me, at some point, you'll be able to, you won't go to the furniture store to get your furniture, you'll go have it distributed and printed because the materials will be available for that. To me, that's, when you have a machine that can clone itself, what more? Is that scary?
That's so scary.
It'd be the first technology to get a 3D printer and make more 3D printers.
Think about it. If we could print this table out of some sort of polymer resin, and it was really easy to do, and then we could take the table and we could grind it back up into its component polymer resin, and we could print it in another form. We talk about sustainability. So we want to redecorate our house, which everybody wants to do every few years. You could just take that table, grind it up, and print a new one in a different shape. That would be really sustainable. That's another way to think about design and how can you actually reuse all that stuff.
Well, clothing. I mean, how often do you go to formals where men need a tuxedo? Not often enough they want to own one, so print one up for tonight and recycle that stuff after you get through that wedding.
That's pretty cool. Well, great. I want to ask you for a big round of applause for our panel. Great job. And we now have lunch. Oh, we have time? I got the flag. Okay, 3 questions. 3 questions. Okay, then we can applaud again, and then go to lunch. Any questions for the panel? No, they want to go to lunch. There's a question in the back here.
Hi, great presentation. Just a question for all the members of the panel. We always talk about innovation being a mindset, and a lot of you are from different industries. I mean, Nathan's in manufacturing. How do you actually create that mindset when you have another job to do? I mean, do you have to remove yourself away? The lady from Knickerbox is an example. I mean, you were running a business at the time. So how do you actually do both at the same time?
I think it comes back to the curiosity thing. I think that, I didn't go out of my way when I was doing my daily job at Marks and Spencer to defect, as it was so nicely put, and start my own business. I think that what is more interesting is the fact that if you're curious and if you really are watching and looking and your mind takes you to that place, I think most entrepreneurs would say that they just had an idea or they spotted an opportunity that they just couldn't let rest. And it's much more, it's not so much of a conscious decision. I think if you go out with I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to make £1 million, I think it's a very bad road to go down. I think this is about need. I think it's about seeing an opportunity and being passionate enough about it to really research it. And that tends to come from being inspired more than it does from saying I'm going to put 3 hours at the end of the day towards it. I think you just naturally move yourself into that space.
Yeah, I don't think, and I think a really important point that you made is it's the entrepreneurs are never about the money.
No.
It's about doing something really cool. You have this idea you just can't let go of, and that's really key. And I think that's a great definition on the individual level. It's about that curiosity. On the company level, there are companies that are actually fostering it, and they're fostering it by allowing time for it. So for example, Google is a company that gives all of their employees so many days a year to let them work on whatever they want. And Google Maps was actually created by somebody in their spare time because they were given the time by the company. And I think as an industry, you should be thinking about how within your own company are you giving, because as the gentleman said, we don't have spare time to do this in our day job, but as an industry, should we be creating some spare time for our employees to be able to do that? I think that's really important.
And actually, Kurt, you just reminded me that the BBC have something that they call a gambling fund, which I absolutely love. So that if they have got ideas that are going through the business that don't make it through the business, or a TV show or some form of entertainment that doesn't make it through, it can go in and request as part of the gambling fund, and it has been wildly successful for the BBC. I think things like The Office actually was a gambling fund project. It was not something that got through got through the initial net. So there's some really cool ideas for the way people can develop even within their own businesses.
Great.
Just want to add, Kurt, one other thing. As we look at innovation journey, and we're actually looking at probably a lot of the ideas coming from the outside as well, other industries as well. And I think that there itself, what Janie was talking about, we're also looking at funding other projects individuals who may be entrepreneurs who need some funding. So we also are looking at opportunities of bringing entrepreneurs onto the market through helping them fund these ideas to be innovative as an organization, as MAS Holdings overall as well.
And then bring them into the company.
Hi, you asked how do you set the mindset. I think it comes with a vision and a purpose. So what we do is we set the vision and say that we want to be here in a few years. And how do you go about that? So let's do it together. That's how we set the vision. That's how we set the mindset.
Great.
Actually, we made our design company independent from the factories for this reason, because we extracted ourselves from the manufacturing process and kept the team which is continuously designing and innovating without getting involved in the commercial side of production and getting buried in it. So that's what keeps on, because continuously, season after season and the future seasons, our only role is to look at product development and innovation without getting bogged down in the manufacturing process.
So you created the space by creating a separate company to focus on it.
Total space.
Fantastic. Great. Well, I'm now being told absolutely no more questions. We're out of time. We have to eat lunch. So again, I want to thank the panel for a great presentation. So, Janie, I want to warn you. Last year, we had a women's underwear expert here, Michelle Moon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and she sat next to Mahesh, okay? And before you know it,
She was the mother of triplets.
no,
That's just a rumor.
it's just a rumor. No, she's not. She wasn't the mother of triplets. But all of a sudden, Mahesh had a hand in her business. So, and I mean, I mean making an investment. Anyways, that woke everybody up. So I want to invite, we're going to start with a panel, and we're going to talk about opportunities for regional growth, which is a really important subject. I want to invite up the four panelists. Tuli Correa, Secretary General of JAF, what does that stand for again? The Joint Apparel Association Forum. So Tuli, if you could come on up. Arun Hydramani, Director of the Hydramani Group. Udina Wickramasuriya, is that pretty close? Director of Brandix, Lanka. And Alak Malhotra, the hub leader for the Indian subcontinent for PVH. If you guys could all come on up and take a seat, please. And while they're getting situated, I just wanted to give a little anecdote. Good or bad, I travel all over the region, including Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and all around the world. But when I'm in the region, the one thing that I notice always is when you're in Bangladesh, particularly, if there's a well-run factory, it's almost always run by a Sri Lankan. It's true. It's true. Whether it's a company, and the big companies here that have put factories up there, or whether it's a company that's actually headquartered there, but it's actually got a Sri Lankan that they've stolen out of this great environment. And Sri Lanka has done an amazing job over the last 20 years of training the leaders, the next generation of leaders in the apparel industry. And there has been a diaspora of Sri Lankans all around the world running these factories. And you can always tell it's a well-run factory if it's got a Sri Lankan at the head. And that actually plays really well into talking about Sri Lanka, the concept of a regional hub, the concept of regional growth. Last night at the Association of Apparel Exporters annual meeting, the head of the central bank spoke. And he said that the current GDP per person in Sri Lanka is about $3,200. And it's about to go to $4,000. But for many countries, when they get to $4,000, they get stuck. And it's like a conundrum. You can't get out of it. And the way that you get out of it is you get to the next level of manufacturing, where you really industrialize the country. But you don't do it by just industrializing your own country. The way that Sri Lanka is going to be successful is by being the leadership for the area, whether it's manufacturing in India or Bangladesh, and taking that expertise, because that is what, that leverage will bring wealth and prosperity into Sri Lanka to help you get past that $4,000 per person GDP, to help you move from a developing to a developed country. And that's a fundamental transition. And the leadership in this room and the people that you have trained, the people that have left to go run these factories, these are a big part of the key to the success of Sri Lanka. So we're going to talk about the keys to growth and things that can happen. We were going to have a video that was going to be produced about the regional hub concept, but somehow through technical issues it was never produced, or never produced to the right quality. So I'm going to ask Tuli to actually explain to us the concept and also the government regulations that are being put in place to allow for the concept of a regional hub and to help spur this growth. So thank you.
Thank you, Quad. I think you made my life easier by saying exactly what we have been doing. I think being an island nation of 21 million people, there was no way that we could get out of our poverty trap unless we concentrate on exports. We started this journey in 1970, and we continue to do so by using the orthodox type of export processing. Things have changed. GDP structure of this country has changed drastically. Where we were a prime commodity exporter, and we have now changed our structure. Now the time has come for us to elevate ourselves to the next level. So, as we had